It's time to rumble. It's time for the Royal Rumble because I'm John Ritlin. This is the first of 3 planned retro reviews that I'm going to do of past Royal Rumble events. And this one is Royal Rumble 1990. Has it aged well? No, it's aged like a fine goddamn milk. There were some good moments in this, especially in the Rumble. There was one iconic stare down that I'll get to here in a bit, but boy, these shows have not aged all that well. I'm going to be doing the 1990 WCW pay-per-views as well as 1995 Royal Rumble and the 1995 WCW pay-per-views and all this stuff. I'm going to be doing a lot of retro reviews. So I'm really trying to see how good these shows still are. Now, there are moments that hold up pretty goddamn well, and it is a great amount of nostalgia. I also miss Vince's overly exuberant reactions to, like, you know, the people on the card and everything, introducing the participants in the Rumbles, and, you know, all the cards and everything, and all that beef, all that, you know, overly exuberant, coked out of his goddamn mind Vince. I don't think he ever was on coke, but sweet Jesus, that guy must have been on copious amounts of caffeine. He was insane. He still is, but now he's just old and senile. So we start off with Tony Schiavone and Jesse Ventura on commentary. Jesse Ventura in Disney World gear because they were in Orlando, Florida. Schiavone, this was the only Rumble I believe he was part of. He wasn't with the company very long. I think only like a year. And yeah, it was, and Ventura, I think, was gone by like SummerSlam 1990. Anyway, we get the fabulous Rougeau brothers with Jimmy Hart versus the Bushwhackers. It was comedy versus heel, you know, foreigners and stuff like that. So really nothing has changed in WWE in 30 years. I do miss when tag team wrestling was actually prominently featured because this had some really good tag team work. I don't know why the Bushwhackers were ever all that over, though. As the Sheep Herders, they bled buckets on multiple continents, beat the shit out of themselves, out of their opponents, probably out of fans at ringside and everything. This gimmick extended their careers, and they were better off for it. They got years out of this gimmick that really only had the shelf life to about this point. But hey, the fans still loved them and everything, and I did love them as a kid. And they used battering ram and pin Jock 1, 2, 3. Jock would become the Mountie. I believe would be the Mountie by this time next year. I believe he'd be Tito Santana. It was either at the Rumble event or it was at WrestleMania. There was one of the two. But anyway, actually I think it'd be Coco Beware at the 91 Rumble. Moving on. Then Raymond, of course, Raymond Rougeau, who still punched the shit out of most of the people, on the main roster because, and probably even NXT, he's got a hell of a right hand. He's legit tough. This match was just strictly comedy, but hey, the crowd loved it. That's great. Mean Gene interviewing Ted DiBiase and Virgil. Virgil was not a dig at Dusty Rhodes. Why would you think that? He was, because that was Dusty's actual first name, in case you didn't know. Ted DiBiase was number 1 in the Rumble, or number 30 in the Rumble last year, and is number 1 in this Rumble. And I got a little factoid about Ted DiBiase a little bit later when I start talking about the Rumble match. We then get to Genius, Leaping Lanny Poffo versus Bruised Beefcake. This was not good. This was shit. This is absolute shit. If you know anything about Lanny Poffo, there's some controversy surrounded this guy. Though Jesse Ventura did have a line that has not aged all that well, the Genius may be a little light in the loafers. If you don't know what that means, Google it, kids. I'm not going to say it here, but it's a line that hasn't aged well. There was a ref bump, a sleeper hold, and then while the referee was out, Bruised Beefcake starts cutting the Genius's hair. Mr. Perfect comes down, does this. This would actually lead to Bruised Beefcake beating Mr. Perfect in his first televised loss at WrestleMania 6. And then Bruised Beefcake would suffer a parasailing accident that thankfully he did recover from. I never really liked Bruised Beefcake characters. For a bit of a brief rant here, I never cared for Bruised Beefcake. He was an adequate worker. I'm glad he did recover from said parasailing accident, but as a kid, sure, till about 9 years old. But then it's like he was so many damn gimmicks in WCW. It was absolutely insane. Whatever. This match was shit. This match was absolute shit. It was a double DQ because the ref got bumped by both of them. Then a Heenan family interview with Andre the Giant and Haku, the current WWF Tag Team Champions. Yes, it was the WWF back then. And Rick Rude. Rick Rude shredded to the goddamn... Good Lord, Rick Rude. Just was like... He's all shredded up. He was in peak Rick Rude form. They were talking about who's going to do this. Who's going to do this? Sean Mooney doing the interviews and stirring it up. Well, wait, what if it comes down to the Heenan family members just getting everybody going at each other? And then we get Rugged Ronnie Garvin versus Greg the Hammer Valentine in a submission match. And oh dear, oh boy, Garvin was way past his prime at this point. Garvin was past his prime in 87 when he won the NWA title and then lost it back to Ric Flair at Starrcade 87. Though, Rugged Ronnie Garvin hell of a goddamn talent. There's a reason why he had the hands of stone in WCW, well, at Jim Crockett Promotions, and it was weird. He turned on Dusty Rhodes at Great American Bash 88, helping Barry Windham win the U.S. Championship from Dusty, and then that was it. He was gone by like August. He was gone by like a month later. It was just so odd. I don't remember the exact context. Could have been money dispute. Could have been something. He went to the AWA, and then he was in WWE for about a year and a half, something like that. This match should have been good because you have two legit, tough, submission-based wrestlers and great strikers and everything. Greg Valentine's opinions of women aside, and the fact that he always looks so goddamn happy. Doesn't he look so happy whenever he's around? Fucking hell. Good God, and people call me grumpy. They did have a few stiff shots. There were some good moments. This match went on forever. Oh, and they kept trying to go for pinfalls instead. Two submission-based wrestlers. Yeah, you could understand accidentally going for pinfalls here and there, but they were going for schoolboys. They were going for sunset flips. Going for an accidental pin when you knock out your opponent. Oh, shit. Oh, right, I can't cover them. Okay, but if the timing was any more off with these guys, they might as well start the match over. They both had shin guards on their legs, on their respective legs. And at one point, Ron Garvin got his taken off, and then he took Greg Valentine's off. And we get a figure four from Greg Valentine, but then we get a sharpshooter variation from Ron Garvin, and Greg Valentine gives up even though he doesn't tap. He just verbally says, yes, I guess. Thank God this was over. This match was shit. This match was shit and should have been so much better. I get what they were trying to do, but the story they told was not a good one at all. Then we get Mean Gene interview Mr. Perfect about the earlier interference and about the Rumble. Hey, he drew the perfect number. He drew number 30. Cool. He's gonna win it. Not gonna win it. We get Brother Love interview segment with Sensational Sherry and Sapphire, because this was during the whole Macho King, Randy Savage, and Dusty Rhodes feud. I'm going to take a moment to say I absolutely despise Bruce Pritchard. He's a goddamn liar. He's a goddamn piece of shit. Some of the stuff he said on his podcast, he's an ass kisser to Vince, but you know what? Whatever. He's been in wrestling. I haven't. I'm just a fan. I'm just talking about the stuff I observed. The moment he lost any remaining respect I have for him was when he said the Booker T Triple H storyline wasn't a racist storyline. Now, whether Bruce actually believes that or not, and he might believe it because he's an idiot, that made me lose any remaining respect. That being said, the Brother Love character was supposed to be irritating, but at this point, it was the kind of heat where it's like, I don't even want to see him get the shit beat out of him. I just want him off my screen. Even as a 9-year-old kid, I'm just like anybody. I said, I would hit the mute button sometimes because he's just irritating. It's like, I'd mute him sometimes. Sometimes I'd switch the channel and then switch back. I had the old dial TV. That's how it was growing up. I actually had, an old dial TV and everything for a bit, and would actually click whenever, they had their syndicated TV on and he was there. But anyway, Sensational Sherry tried to save it. Sapphire really wasn't much of anything. I mean, bless her. She did the best she could, and RIP to her and RIP to Sherry, who got hotter with age. She did. Check out her stuff with Harlem Heat. Seriously, she was great. She made Harlem Heat matter. Not that Harlem Heat wouldn't have gotten over, but Sherry's legit, toughness and everything, and her pedigree actually lent a lot of credibility to Harlem Heat. So yeah, okay, whatever. Savage and then Dusty do run-ins, and then at least Dusty and Sapphire beat up Brother Love. Cool. This is bad. This is really bad because it went on forever. No matter how much Sherry tried to save it, it wasn't salvageable. Then a Duggan promo. He's a tough guy. It's about his match with Boss Man, which we're getting right here. Weird of two guys that, made their mark in Southern territories were facing off in the biggest territory. Duggan had made his, reputation in Mid-South wrestling and other promotions, but mainly Mid-South wrestling years before, and then won the 1988 Rumble. That's the weird thing, that Duggan is the first ever winner of the Rumble. And the first ever winner of the 30-man Rumble was Big John Studd. Wrestling lore is weird. Slick there in Boss Man's corner. I love Slick's theme because he is a Jive Soul Bro. I love that stuff. There's two big men slugging it out. And at one point, I believe it was Ventura said, now the Boss Man is measuring him, because naturally I wrote that down. It did go a bit long, but both these guys are great workers and legit tough and really hard hitters. Duggan wins by DQ after Boss Man uses his nightstick in full view of the referee, and then, okay, we get that. He throws a chair in the ring, and then Duggan gets the chair, sits it out, and then just sits there with his 2x4 and just sits there. Okay, good stuff. Crowd was happy. We then get a bunch of interviews, and I wrote down some of these. We get interviews, and little snippets, like pre-taped interviews and stuff like that. Earthquake and Dino Bravo. I was sad about Earthquake, not so much about Dino Bravo, because he was a creep. Demolition. Dusty Rhodes. I miss Dusty. I miss Dusty horribly. The Rockers. Sean lost a smile. Marty banged some neighbor woman, and now she's trying to get child support from him for 2 kids. If you don't know about Marty Jannetty, please Google it, because my God, Marty Jannetty's jacked up on who knows what. Bad News Brown, Hercules, Jimmy Snuka looking for the stairs. Oh boy, God, I really should stop making fun of Jimmy Snuka. No, I shouldn't. Fuck that guy. Oh yeah, Ultimate Warrior. I don't know what Ultimate Warrior was saying. I don't care. It's probably something homophobia, laden shit. I'm not going to say what he said, but he said something doesn't make the world work. Anyway, so we get more interviews. We get Randy Savage. I miss Randy Savage. I miss him horribly. Seriously. I wish that he was still around. He had been able to be inducted while he was alive. Jake Roberts, Barbarian, Warlord, Hulk Hogan, others, and everything. Rick Martel, I believe, got a little interview snippet. Tito Santana. Anybody else I forgot, I apologize. We get to the Rumble match. And this is notable for a few things. One, Ted DiBiase was number 1. He lasted 44 minutes and 30 seconds, something like that. 44 something. 1995, which is something I'm going to be reviewing here either later today or sometime this week. It had, Shawn Michaels go wire to wire, and win the thing. Him and Davey Boy Smith were the last 2 in, the last 2 remaining. The problem is that Rumble lasted bell to bell 38 minutes. Ted DiBiase lasting until about number 24, the number 24, 23, 24 entrant came in. That right there tells you something. He lasted that long. He lasted 6 minutes longer than Shawn Michaels, who was an Iron Man in that. Now, don't get me wrong, lasting 38 minutes in a match is something else, but it's just I always find it funny that they fudge numbers with that. So moving on, Andre in his last Rumble match, it was very hard to see Andre at this point. There were some great moments, though. Demolition beating him up. Andre getting a chance, tossed the Warlord out, did some really good stuff. We had Roddy Piper, who had an earlier interview segment, and him and Bad News Brown are tangling and everything. And that feud wasn't... Oh boy, that feud was something else, wasn't it? My God, that feud was something else. We then get Dusty Rhodes and Randy Savage having the continuation of their feud and everything, building up to Mania. He tossed the Macho King out. Here comes the Macho King, as Shivani said, as like Savage went over the top. We then get Hogan and Warrior with the face-off. This was the moment that everybody remembers from this Rumble, at least longtime fans. It's just like Warrior was number 18, I want to say. He got in the ring with a bunch of people and stuff like that, tossing people out. No selling a lot of shit, because that's all he knew how to do, because he was never a good worker. He's a piece of shit, and I don't really care if any Ultimate Warrior fans are watching this. I'm standing by what I'm saying. But anyway, with that, Hogan comes to lane number 24. Hogan, the current WWF champion, by the way. And he had to win the Rumble. I mean, and I get it. He was, he won the Rumble twice, 2 years in a row and everything. Thankfully, he didn't win the 92 Rumble, which is a Rumble I will be watching sometime between now and the 26th, because I love that Rumble. It is the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. Fight me. I mean, you don't have to fight me. You guys can have an opinion if you want, but Hogan's in there at 24, and then we get, I think, Shawn Michaels in at 26 or 25 and stuff like that. So everybody gets tossed out, and just Warrior had been in there a few minutes, and of course was already blown up because he had no cardio. But they're facing off, the crowd going absolutely crazy. Their reaction was shaking the floor. You could hear it. They had a bit of a shoving match. They do the shoulder block thing, bump into each other, crisscross, and then they hit each other, and they're down. And that right there is how you hook the fans for a WrestleMania match. And then Barbarian, Rick Rude, Barbarian, Rick Rude, no, Hercules wasn't in it. Somebody else, and then Mr. Perfect in. And it came down to, and Warrior did get dumped soon after, sometime like after that, and then came in and saved Hogan after dumping, or, knocking a whole bunch of people out, and that would build to the match. And then we had, I think it was down to Rude, Perfect, and Hogan. And then Rude accidentally knocked Perfect over the ropes. Perfect tried to get back in and inadvertently pulled the ropes, and Rick Rude came out. Or fell out. Gross. And came out. And then Perfect was arguing with him. Hogan got him in the ring, beat him up a bit. Perfect got on the Perfect Plex. Hogan immediately no-sold it and everything. Chucked Perfect out and won the Rumble. So that's pretty much it for that. The show has not aged well, but there are some moments that still do stick out. Easy for me to say. I enjoyed the Hogan Warrior face-off, even with how much of a piece of shit both those guys are. Guess what? That was a hell of a moment. And there were some other good moments in the Rumble. And really, like, it wasn't a bad card, but there were two pretty bad matches, let's be honest. Genius and Beefcake, because Beefcake was never any good, and Genius sure as fuck wasn't a good character at all. And then the Garvin Valentine match should have been so much better than it was. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.